Hello children, let me welcome you to the virtual class of the Brihan Mumbai Mahanagar Palika. My name is Shraddha teacher. Children, we are in the middle of this COVID-19 pandemic, and because of that we are not able to go to school, but that doesn't mean we are going to stop learning. So we are going to do many lessons which are very interesting from your textbook through the virtual class here. So let us do a lesson in English today. So children, let us start with another lesson in standard 10th English, and this lesson is lesson number 2 from unit 3 in your English textbook, and the name of the lesson is The Night I Met Einstein. Now if you recall, the first lesson in unit 3 in your textbook was The Night of the Scorpion. So both these lessons have the same kind of title, but the stories are going to be totally different. The Night of the Scorpion, the lesson was based on superstitions, and the lesson was mainly based on the selfless love that the mother has for her children. But in this particular lesson, you will see that it is about a person's disinterest in music and how he went on to meet this great personality, this great scientist and teacher, that is Albert Einstein, and how Einstein instilled the love of music into him. All right, so we are going to look at many exercises which are there in the warming up part of this lesson, and later on we will try to understand the meaning of the lesson or the summary of the lesson using some beautiful and interesting pictures, and then we will go and do the workshop part of this lesson, the English workshop part. So come on, let us start by learning a little bit about Albert Einstein. So he is called as the unrivaled genius. Now, what is the meaning of unrivaled genius? There is no other person who can occupy his place as a genius even today. Now, he lived from March 1879 to April 1955. And now you will see that when you talk about or when you learn about the life of Albert Einstein, you will realize that when he was growing up, that is when he was still a child, he was nothing extraordinary. Okay, he was in fact having a lot of problems in his class and in his learning, etc. So nobody could have predicted at that time that he would go on and become such a great scientist. So let us see what are the main highlights of his life. So it took him 9 years to get a job in academia. That means he took almost 9 years to earn himself a job as a teacher. Now, when he was still a child, at the age of 16, and Einstein is said to have failed an exam that would help him train to become an electrical engineer. So, like we have these entrance exams today for engineering and for medicine, in the same way, when Einstein was 16, he also appeared for an exam or an entrance exam which would have helped him to become an electrical engineer, but then it could not happen and he failed the exam, so he did not get any kind of formal training in engineering. He was never the topper of the class. So you would imagine that he's such a big genius and he's such a big scientist, so he might have been a class topper. Okay, he would have got the first rank in his class, but that was not the case. He slept for 10 and 11 hours a day. Now it is said that we need maximum of 8 hours sleep a day, and the remaining time should be devoted to working, studying, etc. But Einstein slept for almost half of the day. That is, for 11 hours out of 24 hours he used to sleep. And he was speechless until he was 7 years old. So children start speaking or they start making noises when they are around 6 and 7 months old, and then they are able to say meaningful things by the time they are 1.5, 2 years old. But Einstein was speechless. He could not say anything. He did not say anything till he was around 7 years old. The most important thing about Einstein was he used to prioritize imagination over learning. He felt that knowledge is important, but what is more important than knowledge is imagination. And he used to hardly remember things sometimes. Okay, so memory and thinking and rote learning and sitting and by hearting something was not very high on his list of things to do. So this is in short about Albert Einstein. Now let us move on and see what is the most important thing that Albert Einstein told to the world. He said, imagination is more important than knowledge. You might have a lot of knowledge, but you have no imaginative skills and you don't know how to apply that knowledge to things, then your knowledge is useless. So he felt that imagination is more important than knowledge. Okay, and you can see his appearance also. He was not very bothered about his looks, so his hair was always disheveled. All right, so he was a person who used to focus more on his on what he used to do, okay, rather than how he used to look. So let us learn a little bit more about Albert Einstein according to the first exercise in your warming up part. Let us try and find out certain things about him. So what was his profession? So he had varied, you can say, roles to play in the lives of people. For some, he was a teacher. He was also a mathematician. He was a philosopher. He was an author who used to write books. He was also good at physics. He was an expert in physics also. So he had so many, he used to don so many caps. He had so many roles to play. What was the field of science in which he specialized? He specialized in the field of physics. Okay, that is why we say he is a physicist. What is a world famous theory that he proposed? He proposed the theory of relativity. Okay, you must have learnt this in your science lessons. Your science teacher must have explained this to you better. That is, what is the theory of relativity? He won a number of awards also in his lifetime. So let us look at some of the awards that he won. So in 1921, he won the Nobel Prize in Physics. So this was the most notable achievement in his life. That is, he won the Nobel Prize in Physics. Later, in 1935, he won the Franklin Medal. And then in 1925, he went on to win the Copley Medal. Okay, so these were some of the awards or some of the, you can say, achievements or recognition which was earned by Albert Einstein. Now let us talk about something which was not very favorable in his childhood. He had certain disabilities. I told you he couldn't speak or he would not speak till he was 7 years old. So what other disabilities did he have? He was a dyslexic as well. Okay, dyslexia is a kind of a disability where you are not able to read properly. And he was also a late talker. He started talking when he was only 7 years old. Which are the books which are written by Albert Einstein? So he wrote books like on relativity. He wrote the book The Portable Atheist, and he wrote essays in science too. So these are some points which have been brought up in your textbook about the life of Albert Einstein, which will give you a kind of a quick look at what kind of life he led. Okay, now let us move on and let us talk about the author of this story. So this story was written by Jerome Weidman. Now Jerome Weidman was an American writer and he was a novelist as well. That is, he used to write novels, he used to write plays in English, and he was an American by citizenship. All right, and he also has won various prizes. The Pulitzer Prize was won. Okay, he won it for a musical drama called as Florello, and also he used to write music and he used to write lyrics for songs as well. So this is Jerome Weidman. Now, before moving on and learning the actual lesson, let us look at this exercise also. I am not going to do all of them for you. I will just do half of it, and the remaining half I will leave it to you to research, to go online, search and look at the images of the musical instrument very carefully, try to guess its name and try to find out the information. So the very first instrument that we have here, it is the tabla. Okay, and who is the person who plays the tabla called? He is called as a tabalchi. And you know, this instrument tabla is of Indian origin. It is an Indian musical instrument. So you will not find an English name for a person who plays a tabla. Okay, so you will call him a tabalchi. Who's a very famous tabla player in our country? It is Zakir Hussain. Pandit Zakir Hussain is a very famous tabla player in our country. Look at the next instrument. And here they have given you a clue also. A very famous player of this instrument is Ustad Bismillah Khan. So come on, let's guess what the instrument is. Yes, it is the Shehnai. So you must have heard the Shehnai playing when you go to attend weddings. So this is an instrument which is played at weddings usually. Okay, and then the person who plays the Shehnai, what is he called? He's called as a Shehnai Vadak. Okay, the Shehnai again is an instrument which has originated in our country. So there is no foreign or English name to a person who plays the Shehnai. Look at the next one now. I guess you must have understood what it is, because the one who plays it is called as a pianist, they are saying. So what is the name of this instrument? It is a piano. And who is a famous piano player? Beethoven is a very, very famous piano player. And the last one which I will do for you is the next instrument, so you know what it is called. Sometimes we use it in the school band also. So this is a drum. Sometimes people use pairs of drums as well, 2 drums, okay? And the person who plays the drum is called as a drummer. And if you look at the Indian scenario, we have a person called as Shivamani, who is a very, very famous drum player. In fact, he is a percussionist. He is very, very good at playing all these instruments which create music due to impact. Okay, so this is half of the exercise done for you. The remaining half, like I told you, you have to try to figure out what the images are, guess the name of the musical instruments, and then check whether you are right. Go online and then do the small exercise, which is very interesting. So having done this exercise, let us move on and let us do one more exercise which is related to music, because in the beginning of the lesson we discussed that this lesson is about how the author is very, very disinterested in music. He feels that he is a tone deaf, that is, he doesn't understand music. But then how Albert Einstein goes on and he gives him a small kind of tuition in music, okay, and how he suddenly develops this interest. So this next exercise is again going to be about music. So again, some of them I will do for you, the remaining you will try and do it yourself. So you're supposed to separate the words in the columns they belong to. So you can see there are many words given there: chorus, ballet, melody, swar, kathak, raga, salsa, symphony, mudra, serenade, choreography, tune, audience, tango, allegro, duet, odyssey, choir, concert, performance, and hip-hop. Now, as I was reading the words, you would have figured out that some of these words are connected to music, some of them are connected to dance, and some of them are connected to both. That is, they are common to both. Okay, so come on, let's try and separate at least some of these and put them in the columns where they belong to. So the first one, chorus. So chorus is definitely associated with music. So let us put it here. What about ballet? Ballet is a dance form, but in the music also plays a very, very important role in ballet. So I have put ballet here. If you wish to, you could keep it in the dance form column also. What about melody? Melody again is definitely associated with music. Swar again is associated with music. Kathak. Kathak is an Indian dance form. So there it goes into the dance column. What about raga? Raga is associated with music. Salsa is a Western dance form. Symphony has got something to do with music. Mudra. Mudra is again a dance form or the posture which you take up in a dance. Serenade. Serenade means it is some kind of movement that you do along with music. So that is why I have put it in common to both arts. and then you go on and you try and figure out where choreography will fit in, where tune will fit in, audience will fit in, etc. Okay, so this is the exercise, half of which I have done for you, and the remaining half you try and figure it out yourself. Now children, let us go and see a quick overview of the lesson. It is very difficult in this format for me to read the lesson and to explain it to you. So I have always told you that when we start doing a video, you please open your English textbooks and keep the lesson open on your in your textbook, so that you can relate with what I am telling you. You can read along with me as I'm explaining. You can start going through the lesson. So if you have your English textbook with you now, you can open it and you can come to page number 108. So here the story starts with the author getting invited to a party. Okay, that is to a dinner party. And now there, after the dinner is over, the hostess, she invites people to join her in a concert. Okay, so she has arranged for a concert so that her guests can enjoy some music after the wonderful dinner that she has served them. So now here you will see in the concert, there is this particular musician called as Johann Sebastian Bach. Now, Johann Sebastian Bach was a very famous, you can say, musician who used to play a lot of instrumental music. So he was famous for playing the organ. See, this is an organ. Okay, it is a kind of a music which resembles the piano. So on that particular day, it was the piano which was going to be played by an artist, and he was going to perform some compositions of Bach. Now, what is a composition? See, you can see a paper which Bach has in his hand, and the composition is written on it. So these musicians, they're able to figure out. So they try to read the notes in the composition and they play it. Okay, but our very famous author here, he knew nothing of Bach. So for him, Bach was as good as nuclear science. Okay, he had no idea of what was going to happen because he had no knowledge whatsoever about the kind of music which was going to be played. So for him, this music could very well have been a lesson in nuclear science. So nuclear science is also very difficult for people to understand, isn't it? And then he meets Einstein. Okay, and Einstein, he tells him, he realizes, Einstein looks at him and realizes that he is not at all able to understand what is happening. So Einstein asks him what the matter is, and he asks him whether he is fond of Bach. But here he tells him, the author replies saying that for him, Bach and nuclear physics are the same thing. And he also tells Einstein that he is tone deaf. What is the meaning of tone deaf? Tone deaf means someone who cannot understand music at all. Okay, someone who's tone deaf, doesn't understand, doesn't appreciate, doesn't enjoy music. Now Einstein is rather, you can say, surprised that the author has never heard of Bach. So he volunteers to teach him something about music. Okay, he gets up and he tells the author to go up with him so that he is able to explain some music to him. So the author knows nothing of Bach. Okay, so Einstein takes him to a room where there is a gramophone, and then he asks the author, he says, I will prove to you that you are not stone deaf. So he tells the author to talk about or tell him about any singer that he likes or what kind of music he enjoys. So the author takes the name of Bill Crosby. He says, I love anything sung by Bill Crosby. Immediately, Einstein plays Bill Crosby songs on the gramophone. Okay, and then he tells him, what have you just heard? And he also asks the author to sing the song back to him. So he plays a song by Bill Crosby. The author listens, and then Einstein tells him, okay, now sing the song and let me hear you singing it. And the author is able to sing the song. So Einstein tells him, see, it means that you are not at all tone deaf. Okay, but the author again argues with him and tells him that this is my favorite song and I have heard it hundreds of times, so that does not prove that I am not tone deaf. Finally, Einstein uses an example from real life and he tries to explain, and he asks him to remember the days in school when he learned his first arithmetic lesson, that is his first mathematics lesson. He says, what did your teacher teach you when he started teaching you maths? So he started teaching you gradually. First he taught you numbers, and then he taught you simple, you can say operations like plus and minus, and then went on to the higher operations of multiplication and division. Okay, so first he started with simple things and then he went on to teach you the more difficult things in mathematics. So he tells him to imagine a situation where directly his teacher starts teaching him all these difficult concepts in maths. That is a concept of square and square root and pi and difficult divisions, etc. So he says, imagine what your condition would have become. You would have lost all interest in maths. Okay, you would have got frustrated and you would have started thinking that I am useless as far as maths is concerned. So this is a concept which Einstein tries to explain, that whenever you're trying to learn something, so whether it is learning from books or whether it is learning to use the computer, or even if it is learning a game like cricket, how should you learn? You should go step by step. You should try to learn the simpler things first, and then you should go to the more complicated things or things that you feel you do not understand. He said, if you try to study in this manner, definitely you will do a good job at whatever thing that you're learning or whatever thing that you're trying to learn. So this is a very, very important thing which our author learned from Einstein. And our author also appreciated Einstein a lot, because in spite of being such a big person in life, in spite of being such an important person in life, he gave all his attention to the author. He did not even bother to think as to what he's going to get in return for all these lessons that he's giving to the author. So he said that anything, learning music, anything is like learning maths. You have to learn the simpler things first, and then you have to go and learn the more higher or difficult things. Okay, so they went from level to level, and then he started playing music without words. So first he played Bing Crosby, which was with words, and then he played a singer called John McCormack, that was also with words, and then he went on to play music which there was no words, it was only music. Then immediately suddenly he got up and he turned off the gramophone, and they went back and they listened to Bach. Okay, and surprisingly, the author realized that he was able to understand the music now, and he was also able to appreciate it. Okay, so this is what we learn from this lesson. We learn about how the person like Albert Einstein was so humble that he ended up teaching music to a person whom he hardly knew, and how he made the process of learning so simple. All right, so come on, this was our story. So let us do this quick exercise today before we wind up the lesson to see whether you have understood the story. So you will complete the sentences, children, and once again let me tell you that in such exercises where I ask a question, you will immediately pause the video and you will try and figure out the answers yourself. Okay, so we have 5 sentences to complete here. If you are able to answer these 5 sentences, that means you have understood the gist of our story today. So the narrator was not happy about the concert. Why was the narrator not happy about the concert? Because he had no knowledge or understanding of the kind of music which was being played. So in the beginning of the story, you will see that The narrator was able to understand music where people used to say words, where there were lyrics. But if it was only instrumental music, it is of a higher level and it is a little difficult to understand. So a narrator did not have any knowledge of this kind of high level instrumental music, classical music. So he was not able to understand. So he was not happy about the concert. He was not looking forward to the concert. When the narrator turned to look at his neighbor, what happened? What did he see? He realized that he was looking at a very famous face. Who was this famous face? This famous face was the face of Albert Einstein. Einstein was surprised to hear that. What was Albert Einstein surprised to hear? That the author had never heard of Bach, because Bach was a very famous classical musician. So Einstein was surprised to hear that the author had never heard of Bach. Now, after this entire story happens, after this entire episode happens, the narrator, whenever he attends a conference, he always remembers Einstein. He feels that Einstein is present with him. So the narrator's memory has an image of Einstein as a small man with a shock of untidy hair and a pipe in his mouth. Now the last sentence here is, the greatest act towards human beings is, what is the greatest act towards human beings? It is opening up the frontiers of beauty. That is exposing human beings to the vast beauty around them, so that they are able to look at it and they are able to appreciate that beauty and also apply all those beautiful things in their life whenever possible. Okay, children? So this was the pre-learning part, or you can say the warming up part in your lesson. Then we looked also at the story quickly, that is, we summarized the story. Now when we do the next video, children, you will have to wait for the next video to come up. We will do the remaining parts which are there in the English workshop part. So that is all in this video for today.
So children, now you have watched the video. So after you watch the video now, you will have to complete a few simple tasks. Now you might have watched the video on your computers or your laptops or your mobile phones. Now after you watch the video, what will you do? You will please go to the description box which is given below the video. So what is the description box? See, the description box looks like this. Alright, and after you go to the description box, you will see that there are a few questions there. Now what are these questions about? These questions are about the lesson that we just learned or the video that you just watched. So what will you do? You will think back properly about the lesson and you will try and answer these questions and note down the answers in your notebook if you want. Okay? After that, we have another task waiting. You will also click on the link which you will find in the description box to fill up the Google form. So now what is the Google form, children? It is nothing but a simple form. There are a few simple questions there about the video which you just saw and also about yourself. So these are the tasks now that you will have to complete after you watch each video. So children, wasn't that a very interesting lesson? I'm sure you learned a lot of new things in this lesson. If you have liked this video, please hit the like button and also subscribe to my video so that you will get to see all the videos which I keep posting regularly.